Usually, my videos enjoy a pretty good like to dislike ratio, my content tends to be fairly positive, and the community usually responds in kind. This video, however, I expect to get some pushback. Even still, I remain undeterred because, from my perspective, this needs to be said. Behavior, I'm begging you. Enough with the Resident Evil content. For now, at least. Now look, I'm not disputing Resident Evil's place in the history of video game horror. I'm not disputing its current place, wherein it finds itself sitting atop the mountain nearly entirely unchallenged. Resident Evil is a juggernaut of a franchise, and even more than that, I personally enjoy Resi games very much. It's a great franchise, and I am in no way contesting that. All of that to say, I'm neither surprised nor unhappy that Dead by Daylight brought Capcom's flagship series to the realm of the Entity. Of course they did. It was as much of a no-brainer as a decision can possibly be. And not only did they make the easy decision, but once they did, they executed on the concept fairly well. Players will always be divided, but the general consensus seems to be that of all the Resi characters, they're all rather faithfully recreated. Save for Jill, Chris, and Claire maybe. The survivors look either exactly like they did in the source material, or in the case of some characters like Rebecca, substantially better. Wesker's power has drawn rave reviews from the community. I mean, seriously, he's like Nurse, but balanced. And while Nemesis isn't as dangerous as the lore would have you expect, I mean, he did not come equipped with a missile launcher, he's still implemented extremely well into the limited frame of Dead by Daylight's gameplay loop. Save for some goofy face rigs here and some notably bad bugs around the time of the first chapter's launch there, the merging of DBD and Resident Evil has been an overwhelming success. Which brings me to what I want to talk about today. Dead by Daylight should stop adding Resident Evil characters for the time being. I know the Resi fandom is massive. I know the Resi fandom is passionate. I know there's a strong demand for characters like Lady Dimitrescu, Mr. X, and the Baker family. I know, believe me, I know. Despite this, it would behoove DBD's devs to pump the brakes on Resi content for a minute and instead focus on acquiring other licenses. Though Resi games are popular, they aren't for everyone. Some people simply don't like the series for one reason or another, not saying they're right, not saying they're wrong, just stating a fact. And so, to me, continuing to rely so heavily on Resident Evil for licensed content would be like designing every new killer to appeal to the Trickster or Skull Merchant fandoms. Yes, those fans are out there, and yes, they're loud, but they don't make up the entirety of the fan base. And before anyone says it, yes, the devs have been leaning extremely heavily on Resident Evil for the past 2 years. Ever since the first Resi chapter was added, 2 of the 4 licensed chapters we've received have been from that series. Of the 2 that weren't Resident Evil, one was the Hellraiser chapter, which would have been called a paragraph before Behavior decided that nope, all future content counts as a full chapter, sorry. In those 2 years, we've gotten ample skins for the Resi characters while getting very little for other licensed characters, which isn't entirely Behavior's fault. In fact, it's not mostly Behavior's fault, but it's fair to point out. Almost 2 years in, and we've gotten 6 characters, 6 legendary skin alternatives, 18 perks, and 2-ish maps. RPD was originally 1 map, but dude, it works so much better as 2. In short, they've ridden Resi hard for nearly 2 full years now, and they've done a good job with what they've produced. By all means, this should be viewed as a successful partnership. But while I'm aware that we live in the age of eternal franchises that never really die, sometimes it's best for things to end, especially if that means opening the door for future content to shine. Even as a big Resident Evil fan, I'm confident that I could name at least 50 licensed chapters that would excite me more than another Resident Evil chapter. To be blunt, announcing a 3rd Resi chapter for the upcoming anniversary event would be a disastrously horrible decision. Resi fans have had their fill, myself included. It's time for something else. Licenses, at the end of the day, are about generating hype. It's about getting Halloween and Stranger Things and Silent Hill fans to say, oh, this character I love is being added to this popular game. I should give that game a try. It's why everything from Fortnite to gacha games do crossover events. It's why every film studio wants to create a cinematic universe these days. Recognized characters breed familiarity with a product that a consumer might otherwise disregard. And so, with that in mind, I ask you, Who would be brought to Dead by Daylight because of a third Resident Evil chapter that isn't already here? Resi fans who have a passing interest in DBD but are holding out for Lady D or Mr. X before they're willing to commit have got to be a fraction of a fraction within the community. If a crossover event was going to happen to get them on board, they would likely already be here. But now apply that to other licenses. How many new players might decide to head over if they saw Five Nights at Freddy's added to the game? What about an Alien chapter? Are you telling me no new interest would be generated from DBD completing the Mount Rushmore of horror and acquiring Jason Voorhees? Even relatively smaller acquisitions like Candyman, Evil Within, The Grudge, or Outlast would almost definitely bring in more first-time players than another Resident Evil chapter. It should be noted that licenses don't exclusively need to be about bringing in new players either. Exciting first-timers is both good and necessary, but most important of all is appealing to your existing fanbase first and foremost. While I know there will be some who disagree, I would bet everything that I own that the DBD player base would be more excited for an Amnesia chapter than a Baker Family DLC. I guarantee you that the base would get considerably more hyped for an It chapter than a Resi 8 chapter. Resident Evil is awesome, but we've seen a lot of it here lately, and I feel it's time to move forward. The future waits for no man, and this community and the devs would do well to look towards what comes next and not revel in what has already come to pass. A well-planned future maintains a successful present. Now, one massive clarification I want to make is that I don't have any problem with existing Resident Evil characters receiving new cosmetics. The teams that work on cosmetics and gameplay mechanics are entirely different, and Behavior can absolutely afford to work on both at the same time. So long as we're getting fresh chapters at the same time, I don't mind if we also get new skins for Jill, Leon, and the rest of the crew. In fact, I welcome it. Blight's William Birkin skin is insanely cool, and things like that are a great way to pop the existing fanbase without having to set aside an entire chapter. Cosmetics and quality of life updates are absolutely fine by me, and I can't imagine anybody would disagree, especially not now that Behavior announced they were expanding their cosmetic team to produce more skins. They are right, they are justified to take care of the licenses they already have. I mean, a bird in the hand and all that, right? That said, when the time comes to decide which license to pursue for the next big event, I hope it's Predator, or Until Dawn, or American Psycho, or The Descent, or even a second Silent Hill, Saw, or Nightmare on Elm Street chapter. Just not another Resident Evil chapter, because for the time being, Behavior, no more, please. And that's gonna do it for me. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you heard me out before hitting the dislike button, but if you did, you did, and you know, no harm's gonna come from that. We can all have our disagreements, but I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, I've been DustFood. Bye, friends.
I've been dreaming on in my head like I've seen it. A life worth living is a life with meaning. I'll do what I love till my heart stops beating. I'm feeding this demon. Got a taste, can't erase bitterness in my